Welcome to Mindly Way, where we explore life philosophies to grow and find the right path. Get ready to listen for an inner journey. Once upon a time, a bright and ambitious young man named Rohul lived. He worked hard to accomplish his goals, but he had one weakness: he loved to talk. Rohul was well known for his silver tongue and ability to persuade people. When Rohul finally met the great spiritual leader Gautam Buddha, he asked, "Great Buddha, please teach me how to become wise like you." Buddha smiled and replied, "To become wise, you must first learn when to be silent." Rohul was perplexed. "But Buddha, I thought words were the key to success. So how can being silent help me become wise?" "Dear Rohul," the Buddha said, "there are two situations in life where you must be silent. If you learn to do this, you will gain great wisdom." Rohul asked, "What are those two situations?" The Buddha answered, "When angry, your mind is clouded by negative emotions. Speaking will only fuel the fire. You must learn to be silent and let your anger dissipate before you speak." The Buddha nodded in agreement. "What is the second circumstance?" "When someone is angry, they are not in a receptive state of mind, so your words will be ignored. Instead, you should learn to remain silent and wait for them to be ready to listen." The Buddha adored it. Rohul was impressed by Buddha's words. He knew that he had a lot to learn from the wise sage. He decided to stay with Buddha and learn from him over the next few months. Rohul learned a great deal from Buddha. He learned how to meditate and quiet his mind. He learned how to see the world with compassion and empathy. He learned how to be mindful and present in each moment. One day Rohul was walking in the forest. When he heard a commotion, he saw a group of people gathered around a man who was shouting and waving his arms. The man was clearly angry about something. Rohul remembered Buddha's words and decided to be silent. He watched as the man ranted and raved, but he didn't say anything. He waited patiently until the man had exhausted himself. After a few minutes, the man calmed down and looked at Rohul. "Why didn't you say anything?" he asked. Rohul smiled and replied, "Because I knew that your anger was cloud in your mind. I didn't want to say anything that would make the situation worse." The man was taken aback. He had never met someone like Rohul before. He was used to people either fighting back or running away. He looked at Rohul with newfound respect. "You are a wise man." He said, "I wish I could be like you." Rohul smiled and replied, "You can be if you learn to be silent when you are angry and when someone else is angry." The man nodded in agreement and walked away deep in thought. From that day on, Rohul became known as a wise and respected person in his community. He used his words carefully and only spoke when he had something valuable to say. People came to him for advice and guidance, and he was always happy to help. Years passed, and Rohul all grew old. He knew that his time on earth was coming to an end. When he arrived at Buddha's temple, he noticed that many people had gathered to hear Buddha speak. Rohul sat down among the crowd and listened as Buddha spoke about the significance of mindfulness and compassion. After the talk, Rohul approached Buddha and bowed respectfully. One day, he made the decision to pay Butler one last visit. Buddha grinned and said, "It's good to see you again, my dear friend." To Rohul grinned back, "I have come to thank you, wonderful Buddha, for teaching me the knowledge of silence in two different situations. It has improved my life and made me a better person." Buddha nodded, understanding. Rohul bowed respectfully. "I understand, great Buddha, but I will always be grateful to you for guiding me." "I am happy to hear that, my friend, but keep in mind that wisdom comes from within you." Buddha smiled and replied, "You have learned well, my friend. Now it is time for you to pass on your wisdom to others." Rohul nodded in agreement. "Yes, great Buddha, I will do my best to share what I have learned with others." And so Rohul spent the rest of his days sharing the wisdom of being silent in two situations with anyone who would listen. Became known as a great teacher and mentor, and his words touched the hearts of many. When Rohul passed away, his legacy lived on. His teachings were passed down from generation to generation, and his words continue to inspire people for centuries to come. And so the lesson of being silent in two situations, brought to Rohul by Gautam Buddha, became a guiding principle for countless people around the world. It reminded them to be mindful of their words and to use them wisely with kindness and compassion. As the years went by, the teachings of Rohul spread far and wide, inspiring many people to live a more mindful and compassionate life. His words became the basis for many books, and his teachings were studied by people all over the world. One day, a young man named Sujit stumbled upon the teachings of Rohul. He was going through a difficult time in his life and was searching for guidance. The words of Rohul spoke to him in a way that nothing else had. Before Sujit decided to seek out the teachings of Rohul in person, he traveled to the monastery where Rohul had once studied under Gautam Buddha. When he arrived, he was greeted by a kind and wise monk who showed him around the monastery. As they walked, Sujit saw the places where Rohul had once meditated and studied. He felt a deep sense of reverence for the man who had taught him so much. The monk noticed Sujit's reverence and asked him, "What is it that draws you to the teachings of Rohul?" Sujit replied, "His words speak to me in a way that nothing else has before. They remind me to be mindful of my words and to use them with kindness and compassion. I want to learn more about him and his teachings." The monk grinned and said, "You've come to the correct place. Sujit spent the following few months studying Rohul's teachings and engaging in mindfulness and compassion practices. He discovered the value of remaining silent in two different situations. Rohul's teachings are still studied and adhered to today. After leaving the monastery, Sujit felt transformed into a new person with a deeper understanding of both himself and the world around him. He also knew that the teachings of Rohul would guide him for the rest of his life. Years passed, and Sujit turned into a teacher, sharing Rohul's teachings with anyone who would listen, just as Rohul had done before him. Sujit touched the lives of numerous people, inspiring them to live a more mindful and compassionate life. And so the teachings of Rohul lived on, passed down from generation to generation. They continue to inspire people to be mindful of their words and to use them with kindness and compassion. And as a result, the world becomes a better place.